Okay, hello. Assalamu alaikum. I am going to discuss the common misunderstanding about the Surah Mulk or chapter 67, verse 5, where it says, "We have decorated the near sky with lamps, and we have made them devices to stone the devils, and we have prepared for them the punishment of hell." So the common question asked is, is it referring to the stars being thrown themselves? Which would obviously be against what we observe in the universe today. And it's also referenced in other three chapters here. And these are the hadiths involved, so if you want to like pause the video and take references, these are some of them. One thing I noticed is that they all share this one theme, this one segment here, where it's only after a jinn eavesdrops and snatches something where a flame pursues them. So this is like a key thing to notice. It's only after they snatch something does something pursue them. So one of the misconceptions or misunderstandings, so back then, any bright object in the sky would have been referred to as a star. So if there's like a companion saying that they saw a star in the sky, shooting star, or a planet, or a any bright object would be referred to as a could be referred to as a najm in Arabic, or a star. So back then they did not have much differentiation, but in modern times we do, and that's why it can be confusing when reading previous hadiths. However, one of the key notes to mention is that the Prophet and the Quran. So when there's a hadith where the Prophet is directly quoted, he never refers to these objects as actual stars. He refers to them as flames or or not meteors, but flaming fires that are chasing the jinn. Same with the Quran. It never says the jinn is followed by a star. It says it's followed by a flaming fire. And that's appropriate to say that since meteors are flaming fires, basically. They travel at 30. They can travel up to 30,000 miles per hour, and they heat up to 3,000 degrees Fahrenheit. So that's a pretty hot, flaming ball of fire right there. So this is just an example where the prophet is directly quoted. So when uh, when one of the jinn eavesdrop uh, and they listen and they try to pass it on to the one beneath him, the shihab, or a flaming fire, which is indirectly a shooting star or meteor, might strike him, or if it doesn't strike him, he can actually pass it on before being hit. So, what is the actual meaning of that verse in Surah Mulk that the stars are being used as missiles? Um, so, as I said, jinn are only being pursued by this after they snatch something. So after they snatch something, are they pursued by a flame? So the key is in Surah As-Safat, which is chapter 37, verses 6 through 10. So it says, "We have decorated the nearest sky with adornment, the stars, and for guard against all obstinate, rebellious evil spirits. They cannot listen to the upper realm, and they are hit from every side to be driven off, and for them is a lasting punishment. However," which can also be except or but however, if one catches something, snatches a little bit, he's pursued by a bright flame. So there's like a subtle difference here, which I don't know how it's been overlooked for so long, but there's two functions. Like it's because of modern science can separate how these things function, but yeah, there's two segments here. Um, the first part is that it says the stars are there as a guard and that the devils are hit from every side in the nearest sky. But then it says, except if one devil snatches something, then they are pursued. So do you see the redundancy here if it meant that the stars themselves are being hit, are being the missiles? So the only time they're being pursued is after they snatch, which makes the prior verse redundant. So they are, if the prior verse, which is here, they cannot listen to the upper realm and are hit from every side. If this is referring to the stars themselves, which is what the misunderstanding is, it would make the verse pretty much grammatically, it would be poor grammar, I think, poor linguistic, very redundant. Actually, even grammatically incorrect too, because it says however, or but, or except. So it wouldn't make sense to say they cannot listen to the upper realm and they are hit from every side by these flaming fires, but then say except if one catches something, then they are pursued or hit, pelted by a bright flame. So up here, it would say they're being hit by bright flames, except if they catch something, they're being hit by bright flames. Do you see the issue with saying that they serve the same function here? There's clearly two different functions. So again, it wouldn't make sense to say that they cannot listen to the upper realm and they're being hit from every side by flaming fires. However, if one snatches something, they're pursued by flaming fires. That makes no sense. Flaming fires are hitting them from every side, but then if they catch something, they're pursued by a flaming fire. That that's like super redundant and grammatically incorrect, which forces the prior verse to mean something else. It means the stars are preserving the sky in its own way. But then, if the jinn try to go up and eavesdrop, they are then pursued, like actually pursued by a flaming fire. So this would then solve the issue of Surah Mulk where it says stars are missiles. It means the stars are devices, are a means for the devils to be hit by, but it doesn't mean that they are pursued by that star. So again, one more time, they cannot listen to the upper realm and they are hit from every side. So it wouldn't make any sense to say they cannot listen because they are hit by flaming fires, except if they catch something, they are hit by flaming fires. That makes no sense at all. That's why this forces two different functions here. The stars preserve the sky with their own method, some other method, but they are pursued by a flaming fire through a different means. And so this is like another example of the Quran explaining itself. You have to gather all the pieces of the puzzle, which forces you to look deeper into the Quran and study it carefully. And that's why it's so tricky too, how it can mislead people if they're not patient enough to research properly. So if we write this down, so there's a natural boundary by the stars. There's a mechanism which repels these jinn entities. They're driven off from every side. And now if they try to catch something, they are then pursued by a bright flame. So there's like imagine you're on Earth, you're traveling upwards, you notice in the sky it's filled with these things that the star emits, all stars emit, are emitting these things which drive off the jinn. While at the same time, if you go up there by the clouds trying to listen, if you catch some kind of information that an angel was saying, the angel will then further throw down a missile from the sky as well, which is a meteor. So there's a natural boundary, like a wall of particles that the stars emit, which is very hard to traverse into further heavens. While at the same time, if you get anywhere near that boundary where the angels are discussing matters, if you get near that boundary and you try to listen, you are further pursued by a flaming fire, which is a meteor or shooting star. So which means there's natural boundaries for the jinn, while at the same time it kind of forces the jinn to stay within Earth's sky. And if they try to get anywhere near up there and do something mischievous like snatching information, they're then shot at. So how do these stars, how do all the stars in the universe actually, well not all of them, but a bunch of them, how do they protect well I guess all of them, but they all have this function to some degree. How do they protect the heavens? How do they protect the sky that we see in the universe or outer space? So currently stars, including ours, emit radiation of all kinds of all energies, from low to high energy. Our sun constantly emits billions of particles in solar flares, but also stars from many galaxies emit even stronger radiation that actually reach us and can seriously damage most life on Earth. These are called cosmic rays. So this means that stars bombard us with the radiation from all kinds of galaxies everywhere, from every direction. So this should remind you of the previous verses, uh, which we looked at earlier. 37:8, they cannot listen to the upper realm and they are hit from every side. And also Surah Mulk 67:5, we have decorated the near sky with lamps and have made them devices to stone the devils, and we have prepared for them the punishment of hell. So let's take a look at the actual video that should explain this.
For a long time, we assumed the solar system ended where the planets ended. But the discovery of the Kuiper Belt in the 90s doubled the reach of the sun's influence and led scientists to ask, could it reach further? Turns out it does, much further, and we wouldn't be here if it didn't.
If you put a Geiger counter in this room, it would click. If you put a Geiger counter up in space, it would click a lot more.
It's detecting a deadly form of radiation called cosmic rays.
Cosmic rays are essentially subatomic particles like the nuclei of helium atoms and protons and electrons that are zipping through space at almost the speed of light. And these can travel across great distances, hundreds, thousands of light years. And it turns out they hit us here on Earth.
Cosmic rays blast out of exploding stars deep in the galaxy, and they're incompatible with life.
They can rip out electrons. They can, in fact, change the chemical configuration of cells, causing mutations. They can ultimately kill you. If the Earth were continually blasted by cosmic rays without any protection, it's not clear that advanced forms of life could survive.
But very few of the cosmic rays aimed at us hit us. Clearly, something out there is protecting us from the full onslaught of cosmic rays from the universe. It's our sun, creating a deflector shield reaching 8.7 billion miles out in space, using its solar wind.
When you think of wind, you think of the air of the earth, moving through your hair. The solar wind is nothing like that. It is actually a stream of high-energy particles coming off the sun. Things like hydrogen.
And it's substantial. It's billions of tons every second.
Some parts of the solar wind are going as fast as about 2 million miles an hour. It can pack quite a wallop.
The wallop blows by us here on Earth because our planet's magnetic field deflects it away.
The solar wind doesn't just stop at the Earth, it's out in space. It keeps going. It blows past the inner planets. It blows past the outer planets, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune, and keeps going.
It also blows past the Kuiper Belt, carrying the sun's magnetic field 3.5 billion miles beyond, and creates a huge defensive shield around the solar system called the heliosphere.
The solar wind is blowing a bubble around our solar system.
The sun is like a big mother that literally creates a bubble of charged particles and associated magnetic fields that protect us from cosmic rays coming from outside the solar system.
The incoming cosmic rays hit the outgoing solar wind and most are deflected away into space. Without this standoff deep in space, we'd be wiped out.
Okay, so conclusion. Um, so the conclusion is that we have these solar flares, solar wind, billions of tons of particles hitting our Earth every second. So traveling out there without any protection is very, very deadly. Traveling outside of the heliosphere, which is the sun's little bubble that protects us from the rest of outer space, is even more deadly. So um, it would be very difficult for life to survive, as was said in the video. So that's why the Jinn said in the Quran that we tried to enter um, the heavens, but found them filled with fire or flames. Um, and in the Quran here, two different functions. Stars emit harmful radiation across the universe, bombarding any interstellar traveler in severely harmful ways. So this keeps the Jinn at bay here in the Earth's sky. If the Jinn travel beyond the Earth's magnetosphere, they will be hit by those high energy particles. That's why the Hadith say they only listen from the cloud level. If the Jinn try to breach the sky to eavesdrop, then further protection through the form of meteors being shot is hit at the Jinn by the angels. So there's natural boundaries by the stars, and then there's further protection by the angels throwing things at them. And hopefully that benefits you guys. Assalamu alaikum.